The planet known as Ardent 5 wasn't special. It was just another human colony, another chunk of rock the galactic hegemony decided to conquer. To Commander Vok Rath, a towering brute with emerald-hued scales and a chest so broad he often had to turn sideways to exit rooms, this was just another assignment. Another planetary suppression. Another footnote in his inevitable ascension through the ranks. Humans had no business resisting. That was the consensus. The invasion had been swift, efficient, boring even. Vokrath's forces landed on the outskirts of the primary settlement and made short work of the planetary defense forces. The humans had put up a fight. Credit where credit was due, but they'd been painfully outdated, relying on what the hegemony considered primitive tactics, projectile weapons, infantry maneuvers, and laughable attempts at aerial superiority. Did they really think little metal slugs would stop plasma? Vokrath had scoffed, standing over a fallen human soldier. The poor thing had been clutching some kind of insignia on his chest, his final act one of defiance. Admirable. Pointless. But admirable. Within days, the colony was under total control. What remained of the human resistance had either been wiped out or fled into the dense jungle beyond the city limits. Reports from scouting parties suggested they were likely starving, desperate and, best of all, leaderless. A perfect, clean operation. So why was he so irritated? Vokrath slouched in his command chair, talons tapping against the metal armrest as he stared at the latest status report. The colony was secured. The civilians were accounted for. And yet, something was off. Sir, Lieutenant Gorlek, his second-in-command, approached, his three nostrils flaring in clear annoyance. Another patrol has failed to report in. Vokrath waved a dismissive claw. They probably got lost. You know how weak their spatial awareness is. I swear, if I have to sit through another training seminar on field navigation, I'll personally throw the instructor out an airlock. Gorlek hesitated. Sir, with respect, this is the 4th patrol. That gave him pause. Vokrath sat up, rubbing his chin. Perhaps the terrain is giving them trouble. Gorlek exhaled sharply, the alien equivalent of a sigh. Sir, they had aerial support, a whole gunship. That disappeared. The command room went silent. Vokrath blinked. Did it fly away? We don't know. So you're telling me a full squad and a gunship vanished? Into thin air? Gorlek shifted awkwardly. More like into thick jungle. That was not funny, and Vokrath hated that it almost made him chuckle. He growled instead, standing up. Enough. I want recon sweeps, full, sensor analysis. If the humans think hiding in trees will save them, we'll burn the whole damn forest down if we have to. That's the thing, sir. We did send a recon sweep. Ah, good. What did they find? Gorlek glanced at the hollow pad in his claws, then back up. They're also missing. Silence. Somewhere in the background, an officer coughed awkwardly. Vokrath's tail twitched. So let me get this straight. He took a deliberate step forward. Our patrol went missing. We sent another squad to find them and they went missing too? Gorlek nodded grimly. Yes, sir. And at no point did anyone consider that maybe, just maybe, sending more patrols was a bad idea. More silence. One of the junior officers spoke, up, nervously adjusting his rank insignia. I mean, statistically, someone's bound to return eventually. Vokrath turned slowly. What's your name, soldier? Solon, sir. Solon, do I look like an idiot to you? Solon gulped. No, sir. Then why in the 9 hells would you suggest sending even more soldiers into an obvious trap? Morale? Vokrath looked to Gorlek. Do we have an airlock nearby? Right down the hall, sir. Noted. He turned back to Solon. Congratulations. You just volunteered for the next patrol. Solon went visibly pale beneath his scales. But sir, take some of your brightest friends too. Make sure they all share your enthusiasm for strolling into death traps. Gorlek smirked as Solon staggered back, giving a weak salute before practically sprinting out of the room. Vokrath exhaled, rubbing his temples. This was getting ridiculous. Somewhere, somehow, humans were picking them off. But that didn't make sense. These were elite troops, the finest the galactic hegemony had to offer. Their armor alone should have been more than enough to withstand primitive weapons. Their sensor arrays could detect heat signatures through walls. They had air superiority, orbital surveillance, and tactical command of the entire region. And yet, their squads were vanishing. Vokrath pulled up the last known transmission of the missing recon team. The audio crackled, distorted by interference, but a few words cut through clearly. Something in the trees, moving too fast. Shadows everywhere, not human. They're ghosts. The feed cut off. For the first time since the invasion began, a sliver of unease crept up Vokrath's spine. He stared at the display, thinking. They had wiped out the planetary forces. The colony was theirs. So who the hell was still fighting? Shook his head. No, this was just a last-ditch effort. A desperate gambit by survivors who refused to accept defeat. If humans had one flaw, it was that they didn't know when to quit. Admirable, in some ways, stupid in every other, he would end this nonsense by sunrise. Prepare an assault squad, he ordered. No more patrols. I'm taking a full force into that jungle myself. Gorlek hesitated. Sir, are you sure? Vokrath grinned, baring his fangs. I'm not afraid of shadows. The jungle smelled like sweat, damp earth, and bad decisions. The bad decisions, in particular, belonged to the alien soldiers currently stomping through the undergrowth like a herd of drunk elephants. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Vance lay prone in the foliage, perfectly still, eyes tracking the enemy patrol as they passed within spitting distance of his position. The aliens were big, muscular, broad-shouldered, and moving with the kind of arrogance that only came from never having lost a fight. Vance resisted the urge to chuckle. Oh, buddy, you're about to learn. A whisper crackled in his earpiece. Alpha, team, status? Vance pressed a finger to his throat mic. All ghosts. The op is green. The response was immediate. Copy. Let's give him a warm welcome. Vance tapped twice on his rifle stock, silent confirmation, then resumed watching the galactic goon squad trudge through the undergrowth. He could hear their conversation through his helmet's translator. This is pathetic, one of the aliens muttered. They ran. I told you. Humans are weak. Another scoffed. The moment we landed, they fled into the trees, prey behavior. Vance grinned. Oh yeah. They had no idea. He exhaled slowly, feeling the familiar thrill settle in his gut. He had done this a dozen times before, on a dozen different battlefields, but this was special, because this time they weren't just fighting, they were teaching. A few clicks over, his teammate Ramirez was already getting to work. A deep, guttural growl echoed through the jungle. Not an earth animal. No, this was something wrong, something big. The aliens froze. What was that? One of them hissed. Another snorted. Just an animal. Focus. Then came the laughter. It was distant, ghostly, floating through the humid air like a whisper carried by the wind. It wasn't human. Not entirely. It was distorted, warped through their comms, layered with static. An invitation. The aliens shifted, uneasily. That wasn't... Snap, a branch cracked. Close, too close. Did you see? Snap again. But from the other side. Then another laugh. Right behind them. Vance watched through his scope as one of the aliens spun, weapon raised, eyes wide, nothing there. The jungle stared back, another growl. Closer now. Circling. One of the soldiers muttered something in their language, something that sounded suspiciously like a prayer. Vance almost felt bad for them. Almost. Another voice crackled over their comms, patched directly into their frequency. Boo. The aliens freaked. One opened fire, spraying plasma wildly into the trees. Another barked orders, but it was too late. Panic had set in. Vance exhaled slowly, centering his sights on the one who looked like he was in charge. The smart one. The one who wasn't flailing like a headless chicken. Time to fix that. He pulled the trigger. Thwip, a single suppressed shot. The alien commander jerked, his helmet cracking as the round punched through. He toppled, gurgling. And that's when hell broke loose. Ramirez struck first, silent and brutal. A blade flashed, a soldier disappeared. Johnson fired next. A 3-round burst. 1 down. Vance moved. By the time the aliens realized what was happening, it was already over. The survivors bolted, crashing through the jungle in a blind sprint. Which was a mistake, because that's where Harris was waiting. The screaming started a second later. Vance exhaled, shouldering his rifle. The jungle was silent again. He tapped his mic. Alpha team status. All clear, Ramirez reported. They ran. Vance smirked. Told you. Yeah, Harris chimed in. Let's wrap this up. We got a war to win. Vance chuckled. Oh, they weren't just winning, they were teaching. And lesson 1, never hunt something that knows how to hunt back. The jungle was alive with sound, but none of it was natural. Plasma fire cracked through the trees, lighting up the thick foliage in angry bursts of blue. The alien soldiers were firing at ghosts, spraying wildly into the undergrowth. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Vance crouched low, rifle steady, watching. The panic unfold through his night vision. They were breaking, exactly as planned. A desperate voice crackled through the enemy's comms. Regroup! Hold position! Vance smirked. Bad move. He tapped his mic. Harris, make him regret that. A second later, the jungle exploded. Not from a bomb. Not from gunfire. From sound. A deep, gut-wrenching roar bellowed from the trees. A noise engineered to trigger every primal, fear buried in the subconscious. It was part big cat, part dinosaur, and part nightmare. Vance had to give credit to Ramirez for the sound design. The guy had outdone himself. The aliens? They lost it. One of them stumbled backward, tripping over his own feet. Another bolted, slamming into a tree in sheer terror. Their commanding officer barked at them to stay put, but his voice was drowned, out by another roar. This time closer. Then came the whispers. Run. Leave your weapons. Drop your gear. Voices drifted through their helmets, inside their comms, impossible to pinpoint. Vance could almost hear their thoughts. How are they in our channels? Easy. They weren't the first species to underestimate human hackers. Ramirez, Vance whispered. On it. From the trees above, Ramirez struck. He dropped from a high branch like a ghost, knife flashing in the dim light. The alien commander never even screamed. One moment he was barking orders, the next he was a lifeless heap on the jungle floor. The rest of the squad finally realized what was happening, and they panicked. Vance took his shot. Thwip. A clean hit. To the leg, not lethal, not yet. The alien collapsed, screaming, Man down, man down! Vance clicked his mic. Harris, let's finish the job. A new sound ripped through the jungle. Not an animal. A chainsaw. It was just a recording, but the effect was instant. 2 aliens dropped their weapons on the spot. Another tried to run, but tripped over a root, flailing. Go! 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 Vance ordered. His team moved like shadows with knives. Controlled. Efficient. Harris was the first in, catching one alien in a chokehold, whispering, Shh, shh, it's okay, like he was putting a baby to sleep, right before twisting the guy's neck. Johnson wasn't as subtle. His suppressed rifle barked twice, 2 more down. The last alien, still crawling away, threw up his hands. Surrender! We surrender! Vance knelt beside him, rifle resting casually against his knee. He tilted his head, pretending to consider. Surrender, huh? The alien nodded frantically. Vance smiled. Yeah, no. He tapped his mic. The final shot was quiet. And just like that, the fight was over. Vance exhaled, standing. He glanced at his team. Everyone still pretty? Harris wiped alien blood off his blade. Prettier than you. Ramirez chuckled. That's not hard. Vance shook his head, smirking. All right, clean up. We've got more work to do. Because this wasn't just a battle. It was a message. And the galaxy was about to receive it. The battlefield was silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence. The eerie, unnatural void that lingers after violence. Smoke curled lazily from burning wreckage, and the jungle, once alive with the sound of alien boots and blaster fire, had returned to its natural state. The birds and insects had reclaimed their domain, as if acknowledging that the predators who didn't belong here had been dealt with. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Vance stood over the bodies, boots crunching against the scorched dirt, his rifle slung lazily over his shoulder. The enemy lay scattered, some still clutching their weapons in a death grip, others frozen in positions of desperate retreat. A few had tried to run. None had made it far. Harris kicked over the corpse of an alien, officer scowling. "You know, for a superior species, these guys sure didn't last long," Ramirez snorted. "Yeah, real tactical geniuses. Let's all bunch up and panic when spooky jungle noises start." "Brilliant strategy." Johnson wiped the sweat off his forehead with a bloodied sleeve. "I still can't believe they fell for the chainsaw trick. I mean, come on. A chainsaw? In space?" Vance smirked. "Fear isn't rational. It's primal." He gestured to the bodies. "And these guys just learned what happens when you ignore it." A low groan caught their attention. One alien was still alive. Barely. His armor was scorched, one arm twisted at an unnatural angle, and his breathing came in ragged gasps. He coughed, his 3 yellow eyes blinking weakly as he focused on Vance. We were promised victory," the alien rasped. Vance crouched beside him, resting his arms on his knees. "Yeah? By who?" The alien's mandibles twitched in pain. "The High Command said humans were weak, that you would surrender." His voice wavered, his last ounce of defiance clashing with the reality before him. Vance chuckled, shaking his head. "Man, you guys really need to update your intel." He gestured to his team. "You see any white flags around here?" The alien's gaze flickered, scanning the devastation around him. His comrades, dead. His mission, failed. His empire, about to learn the price of its arrogance. Vance leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "You know what happens next, right?" The alien swallowed hard. "Your High Command," Vance continued. "They're gonna tell the rest of the galaxy that you guys fought bravely and almost won. They'll make up some heroic last stand nonsense to save face. But the truth?" He gestured around them. "The truth is you were outmatched the second you stepped on this rock. You didn't just lose. You were hunted. And we're gonna make damn sure everyone knows it." Ramirez knelt down, holding up a small drone. "Smile for the camera, buddy. Galactic News is gonna love this." The alien shuddered. Not because of the pain, because of the realization. The galaxy wouldn't see them as warriors. They'd see them as prey, and humanity as the apex predators. Harris sighed, rolling his shoulders. "So what now? Mission's a wrap, right?" Vance stood, taking one last look at the wreckage. "Not quite." He tapped his earpiece. "Command, this is Vance. Package is secured. Preparing for extraction." The response came instantly. "Roger that, Chief. Your ride's inbound. ETA 5 minutes." A low rumble echoed through the sky. The dropship was coming. Vance turned back to the alien, watching as the life drained from his 3 yellow eyes. His final expression wasn't one of pain. It was one of understanding. For the first time in his life, he had seen true war, and he knew, as his body went still, that the galaxy would never be the same. Harris cracked his knuckles. "Think this'll send a message?" Vance exhaled. "Oh, it'll send a message, all right." The wind picked up as the dropship roared overhead, kicking up dirt and debris. As the SEALs climbed aboard, leaving behind the carnage, Vance allowed himself a final glance at the battlefield. It wasn't just a victory, it was a warning, and if the galaxy had any sense left, they'd listen.